Good evening and welcome to the Select Board workshop tonight. Everybody's here but Lonnie. I think he should be here soon. Tonight we're going to discuss a possible moratorium on adult use retail marijuana. There's a lot of questions and a lot of changes in the law. So we have Phil Saucier from Bernstein Shore here tonight to update us, and it's all yours.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. I was asked to come, and it's just a clarification on the agenda. I talked to Sue. It's really not adult use marijuana that you're looking at tonight. It's registered caregiver retail stores, right, which is the name of the, And I'll get into the difference, because there is a difference. Is it helpful, do you think, a 5-minute overview where we are today? Okay, before we get into the local Raymond issues. So, as most of you know, that we have two laws now. There's what you call the adult use marijuana that used to be called recreational marijuana. The legislature changed that term, so it's called the adult use. That's what you think of, just legalized marijuana. Okay. Then there's the Medical Use of Marijuana Act, or Medical Marijuana. They're two separate regimes. They're both just this thick. This is the adult use, this is the medical. And they both have been recently rewritten by the legislature this late spring, early summer. So it's all kind of new to all of us. Some of it is similar, but there's some changes. Why don't I just quickly do with adult use, because it's really not a topic for tonight, but it was what the agenda is. The long and the short of all you really need to know is, from a municipal perspective, is all the different establishments you've heard of that can be allowed, the licensed establishments, stores, testing facilities, research, manufacturing facilities. Those are all considered opt-in now by a municipality. What that means is they're not allowed unless you do something to allow them. So the legislature changed that in the law. Yeah. Before, a lot of towns are going around doing moratoria. We had waited, you had waited, partly because of my advice saying there's not really anything they can do yet anyway without a license. Well, now it's definitely opt-in. So you don't have to do it if you want them. You have to have an affirmative vote at town meeting to change your ordinance or to affirmatively allow them. If you don't want them, you just do nothing. That's sort of all you really need to know about it in some ways. That's good. There's a lot more there in terms of how it's regulated, personal use, that sort of thing. And there's a little bit there are some regulations you can do around that as well, in terms of buffering and things like that. The medical marijuana.
I wonder if I could stop.
Yeah, stop. Sure.
Ask a question on that issue.
Absolutely.
On opt-in, if somebody wanted to opt in, how would they opt in to the town? Would they go to the planning board? Would they go to select board?
It would have to be a town meeting vote.
Fine, thank you.
So it would actually have to be an amendment to your ordinances, likely your land use ordinance.
But they would have to get it on the selectmen to get it to go to town.
Exactly, they would petition as well, but it would have to be voted on by the town to make it an allowed use in town.
Fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
So just last week, I just gave a presentation at MMA, and like almost 200 people showed up on medical marijuana, or actually it was on the retail side, the adult use, but all the questions actually ended up being on this medical marijuana side because the legislature, you probably saw in the paper, overrode the governor's veto of a significant rewrite of that law. And they've been working on it. It was a bipartisan rewrite. There were a lot of changes that need to be made. That was also a citizen-initiated law, so there are a lot of holes in that law. We've been living with that law for a while. And so this was a significant rewrite. The legislature overrode a veto, so it's now law. And there were actually two bills, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but two bills were overridden last week, Monday. The first one's a smaller bill, kind of tweaked around the edges, the medical marijuana law. The important part about it is that it went into effect immediately. It's what we call emergency. So they had a 2/3 vote in the legislature. And the part that's important is that for the first time it explicitly says that municipalities can regulate marijuana primary caregivers, dispensaries, testing facilities, manufacturing facilities. That was somewhat of a gray area in the former law. So dispensaries could be regulated. We have a few here and there. There's 8, I think, that were allowed in the state. But when it comes to caregivers, a lot of towns have taken kind of a hands-off approach because the law suggested, there's a way to read it, that it was preempted, that we weren't allowed to touch them. This says we can regulate caregivers and all the different kind of facilities that sort of arise out of that.
Can I ask you something on that? Okay, so I know for a fact we have a couple caregivers here in Raymond. Do they file, but I don't know this part of it, do they file for an application with the town to be a caregiver, or do they file with the state?
With the state. Yep.
So meanwhile, we don't even know in this town then how many actually, at least I don't know how many we actually have as far as caregivers go. you know, and I know that the caregivers are only supposed to have so many patients and
Right.
so much and stuff like that. So how do we regulate something like that if they don't even file with the town?
So those kind of things I would still see as a state regulatory issue.
Okay.
In terms of keeping up their state license and if they serving the right amount of patients, that sort of thing. That is a state licensed
Okay.
issue. What we can do is more like the land use context.
Okay.
There are 2 prohibitions on our so we can't ban caregivers in town, and we can't limit the number of caregivers in town. It says that right in the law.
Okay.
But we can regulate around it. What that means is like where you want to have, and what it really means, in my view, is storefronts, something we're talking about tonight. Storefronts, dispensaries, testing, and manufacturing facilities. Basically, when the caregiver or medical marijuana is grown outside of someone's home.
Okay.
For the most part, you sort of leave that alone as long as they have their state license. But these things have morphed into something larger, and that's where you're seeing the caregiver storefronts pop up. Before this happened, there was something called manufacturing facilities that we were seeing in some towns. It was also one of our model moratoriums, where you saw multiple caregivers get together in the same facility and grow. And especially in some of the mill towns, they're significant, whole mills. So, which was never anticipated in the law. It doesn't really even deal with that concept. It talked about dispensaries, which is like a pharmacy, and their related grow operations, and then caregivers, which are sort of seen as maybe you have 5 patients. That was it. But there was this other thing. So we can regulate around this now. So that's in effect now. That's all it says we can regulate. That's
Okay.
good. We need to know that. That sort of puts that to bed. The other more significant law, which is the majority of this text here, was not emergency. That means it's not going to go into effect until sometimes it's fall. Laws in the legislature go into effect 90 days after this close of the session. Legislature is currently in a special session, I've seen, and they're still open for
We're not
business.
closing.
So we don't know when those laws will go into effect yet. Whenever they finally adjourn, it'll be 90 days. So let's just say November, October. So what we have is an interim period, and I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. And what that law says, the important part for tonight, is it makes, just like on the adult use side, these facilities are now opt-in. So you don't, again, once the law's in effect, if you don't want them, you don't need to do anything. They're just not allowed. So that applies to retail, caregiver retail stores, registered dispensaries, marijuana testing facilities, and manufacturing facilities. Those
For
4
medical.
categories on the medical side, yeah.
So it's the same for both
They
then?
made it match the idea of it, basically, right? That if a community doesn't have, you don't have to do anything if you don't want them. You have to affirmatively decide to allow them if you do want them.
So,
But if they're here, if they already exist, they're
Grandfather.
grandfathered.
Yes, and the law actually dealt with that. So it added a sentence that said, those entities already operating with municipal approval prior to the effective date must be allowed to continue operating.
what about something that's
Whoa,
pending?
wait a minute, no.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Say that again?
So entities that are operating with municipal approval, and that's the language of the statute, must be allowed to continue to operate.
They're approved by the state, not by the municipality.
So what it's talking about are these retail stores.
Okay, so we're not talking about the dispensaries or anything like that, because.
Well, we're talking about dispensaries too.
Okay,
Yeah.
but isn't there a conflict in that wording? Because they were never approved by the municipality.
Right.
They were only approved by the state.
Well, so this is the distinction. That is, you actually highlighted exactly the issue I think we're going to see some arguments around. So in some communities, they have actually been given permission, right? So because before this law went into effect, and if you didn't have anything on your books,
Yeah.
there was not anything that would prohibit these
Right.
things.
Mhm.
They're just retail, right?
That's
They're
kind of
retail.
like-
If they were to come to you and I want a certificate of occupancy or building permit, I'm going to build a retail store for medical marijuana caregiver. Well, if that's not a use in your ordinance, there would be really very little to go on to deny those. So a number of these have popped up with approval around the state. And by approval, and that's where the argument's going to be, what does it mean to have an approval? Someone just got a retail store and didn't tell them what they were doing?
Right.
I would argue that's probably not approval. It wasn't sort of with knowledge what you were giving them. If they came and said, yeah, this is what we're doing, and we think we fit under your ordinance, that's probably considered approval, and they're grandfathered in.
What about pending though? Where they haven't fully gotten everything done, I guess, that they need
Yep.
to have done, and I don't think it's been completely signed off by the
So-
CEO.
So pending is a different category. Pending applications do not have grandfathering. In fact, if you write a moratorium the way we wrote it. And the Maine Supreme Court has said you can make moratoriums retroactive and ordinances retroactive, for that matter, to pending applications. So applications that are still in the pipeline, if you will, they haven't got the stamp of approval on them yet. You can apply ordinances retroactively to those. So we often, and your draft that you have is retroactive. So it applies to any pending application for a registered retail store, caregiver's retail store.
That's huge for towns that don't want to do it, but people have taken the risk by setting up a store, still going through the process. Wow.
Yeah.
That's wow.
What about a store that's existing now and now wants to bring in marijuana as an additional product line?
I mean, I think at this point you can take the position that that's not allowed because of the new state definition.
Okay.
We're still in a little bit of a gray area because that law is not yet into effect. But and that second law is the one that actually has actually uses the term caregiver storefront in it for the first time. But it's clearly, the law is a law, it's just not effective yet. So I think you can take that position. However, the stronger position, the one we recommend, is to have a moratorium, so it's absolutely clear. Right. And that's the clearest way. Then you're not arguing gray areas and making a decision that someone could actually appeal. It's the other benefit of a moratorium is you're not setting up an appeal issue, like a denial of a permit.
Rolf and I would call each other and say, okay, how are you reading this one? And these were the early ones, and it's changed so much. But it's the one thing we could not find was anything about medical. Remember marijuana before?
Yeah.
You know, kind of everything was left out of that, and now all of a sudden it's all in that.
So. Yeah, so this became a law July 9th. Governor's veto was overridden on July 9th.
Bet you the governor's not happy about that.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. That's
but
really
from a municipal
okay.
perspective, it's very helpful
Yeah.
as a municipal lawyer and somebody who represents municipalities, because it clearly delineates our authority, and the opt-in, I think, is really helpful for communities that even if you want these facilities, it kind of has a timeout effect to it.
Yeah.
Right, so you can take a look at it, you can come up with reasonable regulations, and then you can have your townspeople vote to see if you want it or not.
Right.
Instead of just having like someone rush to the door the next day. Where we are right now, though, is that potential. So that's why we find ourselves here today, is there is this time period now until this law becomes effect where you don't have anything on your books that would prohibit these explicitly. You just have a retail use. And we've got some argument now because there's a law that defines these things, but there really is this, what some other towns, in their words, rush to the code officer's door because it has that explicit grandfathering clause in there. So a lot of people are going to try to get approval before the law goes into effect and the opt-in takes place.
But that grandfathering still goes in effect as far as if it's not signed off by the CEO, then it's still considered pending.
That's
so
right.
It's not
yeah, until they
covered.
get their approval, it's a pending application. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Do we have to have a date certain on the grandfathering, or is it?
It's
Like as
the
of
way
April
it's
1st or
in the
something?
draft is it applies to any pending application as of the date that this is voted on.
Okay.
So it reaches back. So if there's anything still in Scott's office or anyone else's office that hasn't been acted upon.
So we have July 31st. Then we have that set up for.
You haven't voted that in yet, but that's the plan, yes.
Did you get a new computer? All of a sudden you should be a
Yes.
laptop. Now it's just like hidden behind that one. Sorry. Okay, so we have from now until July 31st to vote that in, is what it is, at a public meeting.
For a town meeting,
Town meeting,
a special
yes.
town meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
May I ask a question, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Can you tell me, and possibly I misheard you, I've got two sentences that I've taken down that don't jive. We cannot ban, nor can we limit the number, but we can regulate, is one. And the next is, these retail stores are now opt-in.
Will be.
Okay, so right now, we cannot ban or limit.
That's right.
But after closure, then we will be able to.
That's right.
Okay.
That's the distinction I was trying to make.
Okay.
Because again, there are two laws, and the first law didn't give us that clear authority to regulate. It didn't include the opt-in language.
Thank
The
you.
second law includes the opt-in language.
Because we can have as many caregivers in this town as whatever, because we don't regulate that.
That's right.
But when it becomes that we can see it, because it's a storefront, that's when we have.
That's right.
Okay.
The way I look at it is, and I think it actually uses this term, it's when it becomes a facility or an establishment.
Right,
So
right.
when it becomes some sort of establishment. And that's defined as these 4 categories that I've been mentioning. So it's this retail store, the dispensary, the manufacturing facility, or the testing facility. That's the way the statute pulls those out. So it's something beyond someone just being a caregiver in their home, essentially.
So touching on all of that, can you touch on the fact that you're doing the medical marijuana, but as far as the adult use, anybody that has a storefront medical marijuana store, okay, that's one thing. But then all of a sudden they want to make that store also into a recreational facility, because you know of two places that currently want to do that. So they can't.
That's right.
What I read, they
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah. Co-lake, it's called co-lake, I just had it in front of me. Yeah, so they can't be in the same building even.
Okay.
But again, the retail's opt-in, so they're not going to even have that
Okay.
unless the town votes to allow adult use retail stores in town.
Okay. And I think I'm just getting clarification
Yeah.
on video. That way, where if people
Yes.
go back and
Yeah.
watch this, then that. Way.
Yeah, so
Okay.
what the law did was very helpful. I mean, there are a lot of moratorias around. Some of them already ran out because they were waiting so long, and you guys took a waiting period, which was prudent in some ways because the retail stores weren't going to be even allowed until the state licenses were issued.
Right.
The state, as you know, has not gotten around to doing that. Now it's just clear. It's sort of it's an opt-in, so they're not allowed in this town as of today.
Here's a totally off the cuff question: how are they testing for this?
Are you talking about
when they get pulled over or whatever?
there's a whole art to that I won't speak to, but I've heard some people talk about it. It is much more difficult.
Okay.
And our employment lawyers have talked about it a little bit because it actually shows up, and I don't want to speak too far out of my lane because I work with a municipal employment lawyer and I give her those questions, but I was at the same presentation. It becomes a difficult thing, for example, towns that do testing.
Yep.
Marijuana testing is much more difficult because it doesn't actually mean that you're impaired if marijuana shows up in your system, unlike alcohol. So if you test for alcohol and and they see it, that means you're probably impaired. And then it goes away really quickly. Marijuana does not go away very quickly out of your system. It could be 30 days in your system. And you can be
Right.
perfectly sober.
Right.
And it's legal to use it. So it's a difficult thing to say, well, someone could have had it over the weekend on an adult use, totally legal today. Comes to work or is driving their car, and the current test at least potentially probably will find marijuana in your system, but that has nothing to do with whether you're impaired or not.
No.
Ability to perform your job or drive a car or anything like that. So I think the science is still trying to catch up with that, and I know that they're working on that. That was a big part of the discussions at the legislature.
I think it's because I was talking to my husband about this whole thing about, we're trying to figure out what we're allowed, what we're not allowed. And he goes, how can they even do that when they don't even have that testing down? But like him being a truck driver, well, he fixes trucks. They do. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You're tested within at all. You're done because you work on trucks. But he just says, how do you tell people no when it's legal? But meanwhile,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think that's a challenge. I think they're still trying to sort that stuff out.
Okay. Lonnie's here. Lonnie, I don't know if you have any questions. He's been covering the medical part of it. And that's the same thing as the recreational, adult use, that we would have to opt in for both sides is what it's.
And
At this point, they can't do it. They would have to get our permission to do it.
And the authority trail would come to the CEO and then to various, to have to go to the planning board and then to town meeting, is that?
No, come to selectmen.
You mean to
opt
grant-
in.
To opt in, how would somebody opt in?
They would have to get on a town meeting warrant.
And so either the selectmen could elect to do that voluntarily,
Right.
or you could be
Petition.
compelled to do it through petition.
Okay.
Yeah, I expect there'll be
But
petitions around the state.
But ultimately, at that point, you'd need to have, it would have to be approved by the selectmen to go into
Yes.
to that meeting. However, you'd have to have some sort of an ordinance change, which means planning board would have to do something at that point to be able to come to, be presented to the select board, which then gets presented to the town meeting.
Okay. So there's stopgaps along the way is what I was looking for. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if it came in the form of amending the land use ordinance, for example, yes, it would have to go to the planning board for a public hearing. Yeah.
May I
Yeah,
ask
because-
another
Scott.
question?
I mean, it would have to go to the planning board because at this point, the planning board the planning board's the only one, essentially owns the ordinance to to change, to make a recommendation on changing it. And where it's silent on use and it's an opt-in, it would have to be specifically added to it,
Right.
correct?
Are you pointing to me to tell me
sit,
I
have
have
a
to sit?
seat.
I have to sit. Oh, that's
Yeah.
fine. I thought I could be out.
Just-
Yes.
Recognize your voice. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nice to meet you,
We
Mark.
We
talked
talked to him on the
that's
phone
what
a
we
lot, but
said.
never actually met him in person. Yeah. Yeah.
The kind of question that's come up, one of the things we're saying is if, because you and I talked about this, is the pending.
Yes. When is the permit actually pending? I mean, I guess like deemed complete. In other words, if he's got everything
On your
filled
signature,
out.
on your signature
If he-
signed off.
Well, it's complete if he has all the information in front of me. To me, that would mean that's pending.
Yeah.
And then I would do my review process of it because everything is complete.
Well,
So
we're-
basically, all I would need is when he handed it in, if he had all of his information and I looked at it, kind of really started my review process and he had everything in there, then that's pending.
So pending can be grandfathered.
No.
No, not
No,
grandfathered.
no.
I mean, pending
No,
can
because the
be,
moratorium,
Yes.
moratorium
Effect.
addresses,
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
the
right.
moratorium addresses pending. so
right,
it's-
that's why I wanted to make sure you understood it, because you and I had that kind of question that you were
Yeah.
going to ask. So if there's a thing that's pending, we can, say no, if that's what.
There's nothing pending. Yeah, so far, so good.
I just know that was our question between the two of us.
Okay.
What do you think, Lonnie? Got any questions?
No, I don't, not at this point.
I'm trying to get everything on video that we can in case anybody has any questions or something like that.
No, I
But
think you answered,
well,
pretty
it's
much cleared things up.
it's crazy because we
Good.
try to read something into it every time we get it, but then what
Yeah.
happens is everything you send is longer. I'm like, go to page so and so, Rolf. Check this one out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that.
Well, it's been a change. Yeah, as I said,
No, not this
Scott,
one.
these are the two laws: the adult uses, the medical,
Well,
the
short
new
time
ones,
it will
the
be.
brand new ones. And so things have been changing quite rapidly. But I think that to summarize, even though this could be a 2-hour meeting
Right.
to go through this, really, the really takeaway for municipalities is these are going to be opt-in. You're in control of the process now. Whether you want them or not, there is this interim period. That's what we're dealing with the moratorium. So the moratorium will put, the purpose of a moratorium under the statute is just to give you a pause.
Yeah.
To say, look, our land use ordinance
Doesn't-
aren't sufficient to deal with these. We want to take a look at it. We may or may not allow, in this case, we can not allow them, but we may or may not allow them.
Right.
We may want regulations. Maybe we do want to allow them. But we don't have any regulations around them at this point, to performance standards, anything. So that's the purpose of a moratorium, is to take a timeout, essentially.
So you're recommending that we do move this on the wording that we have here?
Yeah, the wording, if you want to move forward with the moratorium, this is set to go, the one I sent to Sue and Don late last week.
Okay.
This is a model that our firm just put together and shared with our municipal clients right when the law, or actually it was before it was even vetoed, but just saying, we knew we were going to get questions and we just decided to push it out.
Okay.
So we just pushed it out to everybody, and then this has been updated to include the right dates in there and everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
When that medical marijuana, when we did a final inspection today, he asked how the town was leaning towards that.
That's the one I was kind of, because I know it's taken a long time to open. So you haven't,
Yeah, it took quite a while.
it's just getting, well, is it technically getting in under then if you just did a final inspection?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Technically, is it getting within under the wire then? Because it's done, because you did the
Well,
final
it's a
inspection?
medicinal retail, it's not a recreational retail.
Adult use.
Yeah.
What's that?
Medicinal.
They
Yeah,
changed,
but
they
so what
changed
did I
the
say?
wording.
Yes.
As you say, yeah, so we're actually talking about medicinal today.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
So
Because you don't need to do adult use, it's already opt-in at this point, so they're actually not allowed in town until on the adult use side.
But
Until-
also,
But at this point, he was approved by the state, correct?
The only thing he has to get through them would be a tobacco license, but he already is licensed as a caretaker, yes.
So if he, so then
Yeah.
he would in fact, all you're doing is saying whether the building is.
Yes.
no, because
So-
he's now become a storefront.
Mhm.
So in that case, would he fall within not being
That-
allowed?
So I don't know the exact things, but it sounds like this is one that had already been processed.
This has already been processed for
so that
several
Okay.
months.
Yeah.
Yeah, before we even.
This will deal with any new applications that
He
come
was
through. That's
all right. He was the pending one. I was was not sure
Well,
because.
it's behind, yeah, it was behind pending. I mean, it was complete and issued. So
Okay.
it was license.
There's there could be, and that's sort of the issue, is that, and that's fine, but that's why a lot of towns are doing this, because the ordinances don't even anticipate these kind of stores, so they would just fall under retail.
Okay.
And if someone
But technically,
applied,
you can only do so many patients and you can't change the use
Yeah,
of it.
You can only have two, well, under current law, you can only have 2 people in that store as caregivers. Can't be any more than that. But then we talked about how many patients they can have, and then there also was that, did they close the door on that Rotary 5th card that, on that at all? Did they
yeah, not
address that?
necessarily, I don't think, yeah.
No.
Because that's a constant
But again-
rotating, yeah.
Can be, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But again, that's, I think what they did is they actually, they limited now the number of plants you can have,
Okay.
instead of patients, but that's a state issue. It's not the town doesn't regulate that side of things.
It used to be what, 5 or 6 per
5, yeah, 5 patients.
5 patients
Um,
and then 5 per patient, or
Yeah.
6 per
I
patient?
heard 6 per patient.
6 per
Yeah.
patient. And now they reduce it to 3 per patient or something to that effect?
I can get the answer for you in one
I had a good
second.
conversation with somebody that does this, and they really gave me like what the caregiver is, what the dispensary is, what the medical card is, what the Rotary, all of that stuff. I was like, wow. So yeah, and he says it was six plants, but
Yeah, I want to say it was 6 plants for 5 patients.
and they
Or 5
cannot
plants for 6 patients is what I'm just, yeah.
if they also
Well,
cannot share the plants
It
either.
could be a 6th patient, but you would be the 6th patient.
You would, right, and a lot of these guys would rotate that last patient. That's how they
Yeah.
get. That's how they get it. So you go out the door, you're not a patient anymore. And you got a new patient. That's what was going on.
Yeah, see that to me is
And they still have to have a medical card.
it
is like a medical
doesn't
card,
matter.
yeah.
That is
So it
like
cuts it down a little bit, but
talk about bending the rules on that. I mean, it is a
Not
rule,
sure why
but
I'm not finding. Maximum of 8, yeah, so the old law was maximum of 5 patients. And that's been X'd out. Now they're limited to the amount of like marijuana they can possess. So I think that limits the amount, sort of indirectly limits your patients, but they crossed out that 5 patient rule.
they still have to keep it separated.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. Well, each person, each caregiver, like the one that I talked to, has 3, and they can't share supplies, they can't share plants, they can't do any of that. Yeah.
And they can explicitly operate retail stores now, 1, if a town's opted in. So because that retail store idea was not even in the old law. So what the legislature did is recognize them. They say they can operate, each caregiver can operate 1 retail store, but they have to get a state license. They have to get a state license, and the town has to have opted in to that.
Okay.
So
Interesting. Oh my
yeah,
God.
interesting. Lots of things moving, a lot of movement in this area.
probably
But I think
should've-
we've got the law now for at least the next couple of years.
Almost like we should have stopped that like 10 minutes ago, just because I think we all understood, and now it's kind of like we're opening up like
Yeah.
more questions.
So let's go back to where I was going to try to limit it, which is what you need to know is that the adult use is opt-in, so those kind of retail stores are not allowed in this town until the town votes to allow them in. On the caregiver side, caregiver retail store side, same deal, but that law hasn't yet gone into effect. It'll go into effect sometime in October or November, so there's this interim period where caregiver stores would probably still apply under your just general retail category.
Okay.
And so that's the purpose, if you're so inclined, to do a moratorium.
The cool
That's
thing
the
is,
summary.
Dawn has Phil on speed dial.
Very good. Thank you.
Huh, Dawn has you on speed dial. No, thank you. Seriously, this is crazy, and I think it's literally going to be, I think, a case per case type thing, and it comes up just to be sure until we get it. So right now, us going into this next meeting, we'll decide what we want to do as a board, as far as the moratorium, and you can choose stick around for a few more minutes just for.
Yeah, don't ask me to stay until you get to the end of that agenda
Good.
item.
Okay, cool, good. All right, I am going to close the workshop. It's now 6:30, and I'm gonna call order the regular meeting. Everybody's here. Lonnie, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Can I have a motion to approve the?
Motion to approve the minutes of last meeting?
Second.
All in favor? All right, new business. Discussion on possibility of holding a special town meeting to vote on moratorium on registered caregiver retail stores and on mobile homes in the limited residential recreational 1, LRR1, and limited residential recreational 2, LRR2 shoreline zoning districts pursuant to 30A MRSA section 4356. All right. It's all yours. You're here tonight.
No, you're.
You want me to finish reading?
Well, no, you're talking about, oh, okay, so we're talking about the special town meeting to vote on those, but do we need to first move the
Wait.
moratorium?
No, wait a second. Actually, let's back one more step. My bad.
You had your workshop, now you have your
Right.
discussion,
Right.
and then you'll
Well,
decide how you want to proceed.
I want to explain something to Lonnie though too. Is we voted as a board on the manufactured homes. Remember?
Yes.
As a board, and what happened is for a moratorium, and then this came up, and we were told no, that we can't vote on it. That it has to be a town meeting. I'm like, well, why can we do one? We can't do the other. So we checked. So we can't, as a board, vote on a moratorium at all. We have to put out the wording, and then we take it to
Right.
a special town meeting, and they literally check in, do everything, and vote on it. Is what it is. That's why it's coming back up tonight. Yes.
Thank you.
So we go back to this. So what does everybody think about then pushing this on to a vote for July 31st?
Sounds like a good plan.
Why would you not?
Right.
And continue
Yeah,
moving
I
on with it.
agree, yeah. Just keep this thing moving.
I mean, I would also say that based on the fact that no one showed up tonight to express opinion one way or the other, that there's no reason not to move forward to the special town meeting to vote on it.
Right.
Yeah, well, we do have an opinion to move forward with it.
Oh,
I am here, so
do you want to have a comment?
I have no comment other than to voice approval to move forward with the special town meeting
Okay.
for the moratorium.
All right. All right. So I need a motion.
So this was a discussion
The
article.
discussion
I
is
think
now
the next-
closed. Now you're going, now she's asking to approve the warrant. Essentially. is what
Correct.
I'm
Yeah,
saying.
Yeah, but we-
set the town meeting and approve the warrant.
Right, but
Yeah.
we don't have to close discussion on that, do we?
No,
For public, right?
no, because discussion is just discussion, so now you've already,
Right.
you finished the discussion, so now you're into approving the warrant article.
Does the warrant exist at this point?
There are 3 warrants that, let me turn this over. There are 3 warrants that exist. If you go with both the mobile home change and the medical marijuana, then I have that. If you only go with marijuana, I have that. And if you only go with the mobile homes, I have that.
Well, how is it that the town's going to vote on 2 totally separate things at the same time?
You'll have
Crazy.
2
Two
separate
different
Ludicrous.
articles.
All your 2 articles.
Right.
You'll have two,
Yeah,
you'll
two
have two.
articles.
That's what I was
What we're
hoping,
doing
okay.
is, she has a warrant article written that
Right.
has 2 parts.
Right.
So part 1 is going to be the marijuana, part 2 is going to be the recreational.
Actually, one is
Well,
moderator in
Which,
there.
which,
That's right. Yours is
Well,
moderated.
right, but the way that it's
We're
right
not
here
gonna,
is
we're
it
not gonna
sounds.
mix marijuana with mobile
Well,
homes.
exactly. We would
Not
hope
that that
not.
might be-
No, what
It's
I'm
two-
saying
we're gonna
is
have
the way
separate
that it's
articles.
written here, it just makes me think that we are voting on both at the same time.
No.
Oh,
That's why.
I'm sorry, that's
No,
misheard.
that's why-
So do we need a
Separately.
motion for both, or do we need a motion
A
for?
separate motion, wouldn't you think?
yes,
I think so.
Yes.
you do.
And as far as discussion goes, I was waiting for the motion to second to open up for discussion.
I'd like to make a motion to to vote on a moratorium for registered caregiver retail stores and mobile, and, no, actually, leave it at that.
Second?
Okay, now it's open for discussion. Marshall,
I had no discussion.
you agree with
I
that?
think I'm up to speed. Yes, oh, yes.
Okay. We kind of zoomed through things and Marshall's still finding his way through this one. All right,
Really?
so no more discussion on that?
No?
All in favor? Okay. Before we go to
No, you have,
You still have the second. You still need.
I'd like to make a motion to approve a warrant for special town meeting on July 31st to vote on a moratorium, caregiver retail, and mobile homes. Or just mobile homes.
Just mobile.
Excuse me.
Just mobile, yeah, you can't do.
right.
The mobile homes.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Well, the question I was going to ask you is, before we went to the mobile home part of it, manufactured homes, whatever, that's why I wanted to make sure that we have all the language ready to go and just publicly just making
I
it
believe you're
clear.
right, Sue. Just
Pardon?
so you do have the.
Two
I
separate
copied down what
and
you sent me, yes.
Great.
Right,
Could you
so that's
pass
why
that
I
down
want to
to
make sure that we
the-
have
I'm
language.
passing that down to
on-
Put it
Don.
in this one, they put
Yeah.
both in that, and then they put both in that, that's what
I
screwed me
know, so
up.
that's why I want to be sure.
So
that
technically, we
it's
should have
Yeah,
two
separate and
languages.
distinct.
Correct.
Yeah, 2 ordinances. I've got copies I know that Sue
Sue,
and Don
Sue,
should as well at this point.
this
If
is
they don't,
going
I'll
to
get
be
it to them.
recorded as
Yeah.
2 separate and distinct warrants, right?
Yes.
Yes.
No, one
No,
warrant,
one's A,
2
one's
articles.
B.
One warrant with 2 articles.
2 articles.
It's-
One, and there's an A and a B.
No,
No?
No,
there
I
are
don't think
3
you can
warrant
do that. I don't wanna
articles.
do that.
Well, yeah.
One
One is
for
to
moratorium.
elect the
The
moderator.
other-
The second one is whatever we put down first, and there will be 3 warrant articles, just like at town meeting, when we elect the moderator. And then we go into the first land use
Right, yeah.
ordinance, and then the second land use ordinance.
And they're and moratorium are really ordinances, so it's just like, does the town want to enact a moratorium? You've got the language down, but, so it's basically just a question, do you want to enact the ordinance called moratorium for? Yeah.
To be fair,
Well,
this is a fairly unusual thing for us. We don't,
Yeah.
I can't recall in my time here,
I'm
which
still
is
confused.
No.
18 years or so,
I understand.
In other words,
enacting
we're
a
going to
moratorium.
town
They're gonna
meeting.
be
Is that right?
separate.
Sam, hold on a
Yeah.
It's
second.
kind of
Are
unusual.
they
Yep.
We're gonna
Totally
vote on
separated.
3 separate
Okay,
things.
good.
See, you don't know how many conversations I've had with Sue on this same
Yes,
thing.
I do.
Because I literally want to make sure we have one for the manufactured homes, one for the
Yes.
The one there.
Yep, okay, I got it.
medical marijuana.
Good.
And I want to make sure we have the language for both of them
Right,
that we have to have.
right.
That's what I'm making sure that we're clear. So when we go to vote, technically, they're
And
going to
they'll
be
be
voting.
posted, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
they're going to be voting for
Yeah.
each
Tomorrow.
different
Yes.
things. Because,
Okay.
yeah.
I got it.
Yeah, oh, no, I've
That's why I
asked
wanted
quite
to
a
be
few
sure
times,
about it,
yes. That's why I wanted to make sure we were clear tonight on all of that. So then, I guess we're done with that.
Great. Any other questions of me? Okay.
No, thank you so much for coming out.
If you have anything
Thank
else.
you very much.
All right,
Thank you.
guys.
Great job.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
thanks.
Sorry for being late.
Yeah, thanks, it's good to be here.
I know,
I go a lot with my
exactly.
desk on the phone, so.
Okay,
Two signatures.
Scott.
God, everything else is gonna seem easy now after that.
See
Oh,
you soon.
Bye-bye.
all right, our next one. Any
Shoreline
word
zoning?
from Jose?
I sent it to Jose, so haven't heard from him.
Okay, the next, all right, I'm gonna give you guys an update on this. Consider extension of peddler's license. One of the things that I asked about was, when did his license run out? Remember we gave him a peddler's
Yes,
license? And I'm thinking, okay, I don't think he's been back, but,
It's because we gave the town manager approval to extend it as needed.
Well, if that's the case,
Okay.
we can skip by this and I'll do it.
well,
If you check the minutes from that meeting, you'll see that we gave the town manager the authority to extend that peddler's license as needed.
I thought we had him coming back at the end of December, because we were hoping that it moved farther, but one of the things I did ask is,
I'll check.
what is the status of the building?
I'll check.
How rapidly can you check that?
And what happens is Scott knows about the building, and you can't fault Jose and them for not getting in there when it's the building that's having
Yeah,
issues,
sure.
is what it is. So I don't want to stop them from doing business, but I just want to make sure we're all caught up on our licenses and all that stuff. So Scott, you want to give a little bit of an update from what?
Well, they've had several delays. A lot of them were,
Weather.
a couple of them were unforeseen, weather and when it was brought back, they had issues of mold. So they've had to strip it down and get into it and have that abated. That was unforeseen. They've gone through a couple of, I believe it's a couple of supervisors on the job. They're now, Lori and Joe are doing it themselves. So it's kind of like, you can't put your finger on one exact item, but you put them all together and it spells a lot of delays. Right now, they couldn't really give a time when they're opening. They seem to be going quite well on the outside. The fences are all up. They're starting to complete the ramp and the deck. So I'm thinking, you know, that the issues that they're probably still having are within that building and getting those taken care of.
And like I said, I don't want to fault Jose and Ala Mexicana for something that they have no control over. So I'm all for them keeping going with others. Just want to make sure their thing is up. You know what I mean?
This is still the old time diner type building that's down there, right?
We went
Correct.
to one.
Not
up
their
in Bar
trailer
Harbor,
out
and
front
I
or
just
any
don't know
mobile,
if I can see
nothing,
a
just
pin
that
for
building.
me to get. I
That's
think
what's-
that's gonna be.
That's what they're delayed on, and the attorney he's been operating that food truck in front of that, or that
Right.
trailer in front of that
A
site.
lot of delay. Wow, it's been a few months.
Yep. Yep. I think
And they
we
still do not see a date.
I think they're just afraid to say anything on there. I mean, I think they're really hoping that they could open up soon. Their whole idea was that they'd be up and running before summer even hit.
Right.
And they haven't been able to do that. So
I
I
wish
mean,
somebody was here.
yeah. So their intentions are good. They just seem to be one of those job sites that you hit in quirks all the time.
Oh, right, it's not, yeah.
Okay, to make it, so just to make it clear, I'll make a motion to grant the authority to the town manager to continue the extension of the peddler's license for Jose Chavez Ala Mexicana until the new building is ready for occupancy.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Yeah, I just want to make sure that there wasn't any
And
issues, so.
Ralph, if you could let me know what meeting that is, because I just went back through till last
Doesn't matter now,
September.
it's irrelevant.
Yeah,
Doesn't
this is
matter.
true. But maybe I missed it in the minutes.
At the end of this meeting, you have my permission to slide off.
But I do believe it was either
What they're doing right now does not
I would have said,
October,
appear to be.
it was either October or November.
Okay, I didn't find where that was discussed in either of those, only in September.
That's too bad.
just needs her to sit down now.
But like you said, it is a moot point now.
You are so funny, you really are.
I went in and
Calling out the specifics and like, well, forget it, doesn't matter anyways. All right, next, okay. Approve warrant for August 14th special town meeting election, whether or not to begin withdrawal from the RSU Sioux Luck.
And that warrant, I believe, is
You
in
gave me
Don's
that
blue
one, I have
folder.
that one here.
Yes.
So you need an motion?
Mhm.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant dated or for the date of August 14th, special town meeting, whether or not to begin withdrawal from RS 14.
Second.
All right, there is going to be discussion on here. Just for public records and on the video, this is what people are going to be voting on August 14th. Is do you favor filing a petition for withdrawal with the Board of Directors of Regional School Unit, RSU 14, and with the Commissioner of Education authorizing the withdrawal committee to expend $50,000 over 2 years and authorizing the select board to issue notes in the name of the town of Raymond or otherwise pledge the credit of the town of Raymond in an amount not to exceed $50,000 over 2 years for this purpose. What this does is this starts the withdrawal process. It is a 22-step process, and I think that's step number 4, maybe 3 or 4. Yes. July 31st, there is a public hearing. Special town meeting. This one's a public
There'll
hearing.
actually be two issues at that same, there'll be the special town meeting, and then there'll be a public hearing.
There's a public hearing, there is a public hearing for the vote. You are right. For the RSU
I
vote
finally get,
on the 31st.
Two
You had
things
it
will-
right. I messed you
Two
up.
things will take place that
Yes.
night. We'll have-
no, there's 3 that's going to be taking, well, no, there's 1 with 2 things in it. And then,
Two meetings.
Right, so there's going to be a July 31st, I know, it's hot. All right. We're explaining something. July 31st, there is going to be a special town meeting, and under that special town meeting is elect a moderator, vote on the moratorium for manufactured homes, and vote on for having medical marijuana. Then there's-
Caregiver retail.
Medical, yeah, yes. And then, is it moratorium?
Moratorium.
2 is there is going to be that night, there is going to be a public hearing to discuss the RSU withdrawal. For anybody that has questions, comments, concerns, there will be a short PowerPoint and a gentleman that we are working with that has done this. So for people that have questions, please come out to this.
And what order would the board like those in?
I think we should do the public hearings first. I mean, the town meetings first.
Depends, what time did it say in the warrant?
Town meeting is 6 o'clock, traditionally. Mhm.
So that would go first then.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what that is. Okay? All right, public comment. No? All right,
What kind of public are you?
seeing none. Selectmen comment.
Thank you.
None.
Are you gonna mention something else?
Maybe.
Are you gonna mention something else? Not yet. Yes, okay. No comments?
No comment.
Okay, once again, regarding the RSU withdrawal, one of the things I'm finding right now is I can't even get onto any of their websites at all because they're working on their whole thing. So you can't see any notes, you can't see any meeting minutes, you can't see anything. But check on raymondmaine.org, and if you go under government, or is it?
I don't know which part of the website you're aiming at.
Where can they find RSU withdrawal information?
Let me look.
I want to make sure I get that out.
Far right.
I believe it has its own.
Okay,
Its
so
own
if you go to
category.
raymondmaine.org, the top of the menu, far right, you'll see the RSU withdrawals. And it's going to be RSU withdrawal 2.
Well, I think it was on there as the dates, wasn't it? The withdrawal 2014.
Yes.
And the withdrawal 2018, and if I remember correctly, it was on the far left and not right.
Okay, I quit.
It-
I am
well-
so done.
Sorry.
Well, and
No, you said
just-
right.
Because I did look
Yeah.
at it.
To say it's on the left or the right is really, and it depends.
Okay.
Because if
It
you've
was
got
on
a
the left
wide
on my
enough
machine.
screen, then it won't wrap, and it won't be on the left, it will be on the right. But if you have a short screen or you're looking at it on your phone, it will be on the left or in a column.
I
But
say, Kevin, we do a redo tonight.
Mhm.
So anyways, all right, so if you go to raymondmaine.org, check around the top, you'll find the RSU withdrawals. July 31st, again, is a public hearing. There's questions to be answered, comments to be made, anything. And then August 14th is the special town meeting to vote whether or not to begin the withdrawal process, is what it is. Okay, moving on. Town manager's report.
Okay, town manager's report. First, I would like to recognize our town clerk, who was recognized by the Maine Town and City Clerks Association for her successful recertification. So congratulations, Sue, great job, and it's always good to be certified, or certifiable
yeah,
in my case.
I think that's
So
okay.
anyway, confirm dates for upcoming special meetings. July 31st, special town meeting to vote on moratorium on registered caregiver retail stores and a moratorium on mobile homes in the limited residential recreational district 1, LRR1, and limited residential recreational district 2, LRR2, shoreland zoning districts. July 31st, public hearing for the RSU 14 withdrawal vote to be held on August 14th. August 14th, special town meeting election for RSU 14 withdrawal votes. Confirming dates for upcoming regular Board of Selectmen meetings. We're tentatively, or I guess we're scheduled for August 21st and September 11th.
I want to ask the board, do you guys want to meet in August, or do you want to give August a break and go into September? Or do you want to see what happens?
Well, let's wait and see what happens. If we
yeah,
have to change it to, if we can change it to September, that would be fine.
I think we ought to go through to the 14th and see what
Yes, I
happens
do,
there, and
yeah.
just pencil in the 21st, and if we need it, it's there, but if not, we can always.
Okay, I just figure with so much stuff
Let's
that's
get
going
through the
on.
first
Yeah.
two, yeah.
Right, get this out of the way.
Okay, all right, treasurer's warrant.
There is none this evening. It was done on Tuesday.
Sweet. All right, I need a motion to go into executive session, please.
Make a motion to go into executive session for pursuant to MRSA 1 subsection 4056A.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Mr. Herman.
Okay.
Make a motion to come out of executive session.
Second? All right.
All in favor?
Make a motion to, to extend the town manager's contract for a year and grant an increase as discussed.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? We are done.
Okay.